know, it's funny, for all else that's been going on over this past handful of days, for all the chanting and the booing, and then over these past, I guess it's been 72 hours now or so, taking their turns responding to whether or not it was right or wrong or how you handle it. And then all of that on top of this losing and how they're losing. One thing for me holds true out of this entire scenario. There's nowhere left to run from any of this. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers presented by FanDuel. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into hockey and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Nowhere to run. Nowhere to run from making the hardest of decisions. I'm going to guess that's the first thing that popped into your mind, meaning that Art Rooney would have nowhere to run from making a real decision, a definitive decision on Mike Tomlin's future in Pittsburgh. And that's fair. You could take it the whole way down the line. You can get into facets and players and bloated retirement contracts and other expiring contracts. The quarterback position, all of it's at a giant, plain as day pivoting point. But here's another one for you. I swear, for a subject that would normally take on significant prominence, I don't feel it has. I want to swing you back into time. A little more than a month ago, the Steelers are at Acrisure Stadium, and the best team in the NFL at the time comes into town. And all week long, the discussion really was about the Colts. How good are they? Is Daniel Jones for real? How on earth, if you couldn't stop fill in the blank on the run, are you going to stop Jonathan Taylor on the run? Oh, and another one. How on earth were the Steelers' simpleton coaches ever going to be able to keep up with Shane the Egghead Steichen? I know all of that seems like really, really small stuff right now, but that's what it was then. So the Steelers go out onto the field, and the Colts do, in fact, have themselves an egghead-looking first quarter. Roll right down the field. Look at the new Daniel Jones, and here comes Jonathan Taylor all day in your face. Go ahead, take yourself back into that very specific time and very, very specific and powerful feel. You're not feeling great about what Indianapolis just did. You're not feeling like there's going to be much of an answer, but you're feeling something. I know I was. Because I saw those guys, the Steelers, down there, pushing really hard, fighting and scratching and clawing and a little bit of extra this or that physically, emotionally demonstrative, all the way in. And now you're going to remember how the rest of it went, because it did go that way. And while I'm always reluctant to take tangible credit away and replace it with intangible credit, acknowledging that people did have to make plays, coaches did have to make calls, that preparation and execution are always paramount. You know, and I know, and way more importantly than that, they knew what had actually happened. They, whether it sounds silly now or not, went totally nutso over a couple of speeches that were given by players the previous night at the team's meeting. Very similarly to what had happened in Dublin when it was Tomlin addressing the players about how much that game over there would have meant to the late Dan Rooney. With all due respect to the ambassador and Ireland and even whatever it was that touched these guys in advance of the Indianapolis game, honestly, neither of those scenarios should come close to how you could frame Sunday. In Baltimore, against the Ravens, against Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, who didn't just knock them out of the playoffs back in January, they emasculated them out of the playoffs. They embarrassed their next of kin out of the playoffs. And their head coach, who they continue to profess that they love, they respect, is coming off the first ever in his career/life being derided in public within his own city, vocally, angrily, accompanied by the booing of Renegade. You are not capable, and neither am I, of painting a more powerful scenario for what ought to have you carrying yourself at least at the level that they had going into that game against Indianapolis. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know how that game will unfold. I certainly don't know how that first quarter will unfold on the scoreboard. But I do know that if this team doesn't show at least the same level of passion as what we saw on those other two occasions, oh my goodness, that's going to be the most transparent, all bold, all capital letters message that Art Rooney will need to weigh against his own belief. You'll recall his interview back in January that, quote, Mike can still motivate the players. When we come back, J1Q.
Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George is a personal injury law firm in Western Pennsylvania that represents injured people in automobile accidents, workers' compensation cases, and medical malpractice claims. The attorneys at Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George pride themselves in doing what they say they're going to do. It's important to them that when they make you a promise, they keep that promise. And this law firm has been keeping promises for over 80 years. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George has been AV rated. That's the highest rating a law firm can receive for legal ability and ethics. And the lawyers at the firm have been designated super lawyers, that's a real thing, for over 15 years. Rare combination there. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George has offices in Cranberry, Newcastle, Beaver Falls, Butler, and Elwood City. Learn more about them at lgkg.com or by calling 888-842-5454. Again, that's 888-842-5454. Football season's finally here. Time to check out the latest odds, futures, and win totals on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Think the Steelers are headed to the Super Bowl? Lock in your bets today. Whatever your game, FanDuel Sportsbook delivers the latest lines, futures, and specials so you can join in on all the action. Today's J1Q comes from Brian in Washington, D.C. Says, DK, I've been a Mike Tomlin fan for a long time, and it feels like the game has passed him by, and he's holding on to the way it's always been done, like some 50-year-old who peaked in high school and still talks about the good old days. The chants are warranted. They believe the entire coaching staff has to go. Any possibility that Brian Flores could be lured back to be head coach. A lot of these have come in recent days. Some people are so ready to move on from the Tomlin talk that all that'll feel like a good thing is, well, at least we have this guy who can come and save us, who can be next, who can, get me back to feeling about my favorite football team the way I've always felt about them. I have no idea about Flores. No one would. I have no idea about who might interest them, who might fit what they're looking for. And the reason for that is they're not looking for him. And the reason for that is the they is actually a he. And he's not in that mindset because he's not that type of guy. He's just not. I can't say a lot of things about Art Rooney with certainty, mostly because I'm not him. I've spent a lot of time around the man. I've talked to him as a reporter on the record. I've talked to him
off the record about a lot of things, including life and stuff that's got nothing to do with the football or being part of the Rooney family or anything. The one thing that comes across loud and clear is that he is not easily moved in any direction at any point, but least of all in season. For whatever it is that might be making its way through to Art, for whatever he might be hearing from other owners or other family, friends, people with whom he interacts on a regular basis. If you take nothing else seriously that I would say about him, take this much. All he's thinking about is the game in Baltimore. He sees 6-6. He sees first place if we win. He sees a nice little bump and a run after that, beginning with Miami in Pittsburgh on a Monday night. That's what he sees. He sees that not necessarily in a forecasting way or a predicting way, but as the next goal, the next thing that the franchise needs to attain. He's not contemplating Flores or anybody else as some potential replacement. Now, I'm not going to leave you with something that bland either. I'm not just going to take your question and roll it up in a ball and throw it in a wastebasket. I'm going to tell you this instead. This notion, and this comes up a lot, and by that I mean in public things that I'll see, hear, and read. If you let go of Tomlin, who are you going to get? Who's going to be better? As if you have to have that person sitting around in waiting, ready to take their turn. No, just stay right there. Stay right there. We'll get to you when we can. I'm going to give you this instead. If you were a football coach, whether it's a head coach, coordinator, you'd want somebody at that level, and you were looking for a highly attractive position, meaning, with a name, brand, franchise, all that stuff. And then you add on top of it the ultimate security in all of professional sports. The franchise that just had 3 head coaches in the last half century. Which opening would you take? Which job would you most covet? The correct answer, I think, to this scenario is that if and when Tomlin's job becomes a vacancy, you as the Steelers, and specifically as Rooney, of course in conjunction with Omar Khan and Andy Weidel and everyone else who would be involved in the interviewing process, would have yourself, if you do it right, one of the greatest runs of names of coaching candidates ever. And the way these things tend to happen, and we have Tomlin himself as an example, is that whoever you might have thought it was going to be, whatever names were bouncing around there to replace Chuck Noll or to replace Bill Cowher, in all likelihood it's going to end up being somebody you know nothing about right now, that I know nothing about, that heck, even they themselves might not know very much about. But again, nobody's there. Nobody's there. Everybody's minds, among those who matter, in Baltimore. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everyone who listens to Daily Shot of Steelers. I'm in Tampa, Florida right now after covering hockey. I'll be heading back to Pittsburgh and then across to Baltimore. And the next one of these shows will come your way Monday morning.